Some years ago, a polite and intelligent young man wrote to me seeking advice. He was struggling to get over a separation he had had with his childhood fling, a separation that had taken place about a year earlier. Despite the passage of time, the power of delusion over his mind remained strong. He found it extremely difficult to break free. His emotions gripped him like chains. Though he knew, rationally, that the relationship was over, he felt as if something vital had been snatched away, something he believed was essential to his happiness and identity. This belief looped endlessly in his mind, prolonging his emotional suffering. He started blaming others, the world, as well as his upbringing for his situation. I asked him a simple question. Do you still feel the same attachment to that toy or object your parents bought you when you were, say, 5? He paused, reflected, and admitted that he had long forgotten those things. What once seemed precious and indispensable had become utterly irrelevant. This is the truth about all our attachments. This phenomenon appears everywhere. When people claim films from their youth were far more meaningful than contemporary cinema, or when they argue music from their era contained true value lacking in today's creations. But was the past objectively superior? Hardly. These cultural artifacts, whether songs, films, or vintage products, function as psychological anchors, mentally returning people to their younger selves. The satisfaction derived comes not from the objects themselves, but from the nostalgic reverie they induce, a potent subconscious intoxicant of memory. Herein lies attachment's cunning deception. The value was never inherent in the object, but rather in the narrative we've superimposed upon it. The objects do not change, but our mental projection upon them does. The pain we feel in such situations does not come from losing a person. It comes from the collapse of an idea, a mental image, a longing, and an emotional investment that we had clung to. The mind, bondage, and liberation. The Amrita Bindu Upanishad captures this brilliantly in its second shloka. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. The mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation. No external person or event is truly binding us. It is the untamed, deluded mind that we must address. We suffer because of our identification with thoughts, emotions, and memories. Once we shift this identification from the body-mind complex to our real self, or Atman, the illusion begins to dissolve. Carl Jung's insight into delusion and projection. Let us turn briefly to the perspective of Western psychology, particularly the insights of Carl Jung, the renowned psychiatrist. Jung explored the depths of the human psyche, the ego, and the unconscious. He suggested that much of human behavior arises from unresolved inner conflicts and the ego's relentless quest for fulfillment. We chase after external things, trying to plug an inner void that remains unaddressed. Jung observed that people often project their inner wounds, voids, and unmet desires onto others. He famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This applies to relationships as well. What we call love or attraction is often the temporary meeting of two unconscious needs. Sometimes we connect instantly with certain people because of what we are unconsciously seeking in them. At other times, there is no spark at all. Now, Jung's work gives us a powerful lens here, especially his concepts of the shadow and the anima or animus. The shadow is everything in ourselves we don't want to face. The fears, the flaws, the desires we suppress and pretend aren't there. And the anima in men, or animus in women, that's the unconscious masculine or feminine side each of us carries. The hidden force shaping who one is drawn to, who irritates them, and even who they fall in love with. And here's the kicker: people don't see these forces in themselves. They project them onto others, especially romantic partners, creating intense but illusory emotional entanglements. He said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when one of those substances disappears? Modern psychology often responds to this chaos with coping mechanisms and behavioral therapy. But Vedanta goes straight to the root. It asks, who is the you that is suffering? You say, I am not able to move on. But who is this I? The I most people identify with is the assumed I, the ego. The true self, Atman, is silent, still, and ever present. It is a substratum upon which all thoughts appear and disappear. This was the true issue with a young man. He was projecting emotional dependency onto another person and mistook it for love or meaning. According to Jung, healing comes through individuation, recognizing and integrating these unconscious parts of ourselves rather than seeking fulfillment outside. Here, Jung and Vedanta find common ground, but Vedanta takes the final leap. Jung's individuation operates within the realm of the psyche, seeking wholeness through integration of the ego, unconscious, and archetypes. Vedanta, however, reveals the critical limitation of this pursuit. Even the I that seeks integration is an illusion, the false construct of the assumed doer, the fleeting ego. Only the Atman, Brahman, the unborn, undivided self, beyond all constructs, is real. Jung's work refines the mirage. Vedanta dissolves it. Western psychology versus Vedanta. The drunken town analogy. I once explained this through a story about a town where everyone is perpetually drunk. Now imagine that in this drunken town, the therapists and the psychiatrists are also partially intoxicated. They try to help others manage their drunkenness, perhaps giving them better quality liquor or teaching them how to walk straight. This is modern psychology. While often helpful, it functions entirely within the framework of the intoxicated state, within the body-mind identity. It analyzes dreams, thoughts, traumas, and behaviors, but never goes beyond. Vedanta does not analyze the drunkenness. It wakes you up. It says, you are not this intoxicated being. You are not the drunkard. You are the witness, the unaffected presence observing the entire drama. Vedanta takes you out of the drunken town and places you under the open sky of truth. It shows that your so-called problems were never real. They belonged to a mistaken identity. Love, hatred, and the shifting mind. Think of this. A person once deeply in love may later find that very same individual unbearable. What changed? Has the other person become someone else? Or has your mind changed? This is the crux of attachment and aversion. Both are born of the mind's addiction to duality. As long as we identify with the mind, we are tossed about like a fragile boat in a storm. But when we anchor ourselves in the self, the storm loses all power. Krishna says in Shloka 45 of the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic texts revolve around the realm of the three gunas, but you, O Arjuna, must rise beyond their influence, let go of attachment to gain and preservation, abide in the clarity of sattva, and remain firmly rooted in the self. Real work, understanding the mind. The real work lies not in blaming others or trying to change the external. It lies in studying and understanding the mind itself. Our suffering arises from wrong identification with emotions, with memories, with ego, with a false sense of self-worth. Once that false identity is questioned and dropped, the pain vanishes. The young man believed the loss had torn a hole in his life until he began studying his own mind. As he disentangled from its compulsions, a revelation struck. Nothing had been lost. He was merely waking up from a dream, one that had cost him precious years of his youth. The hardest truth? To the other person, he likely meant little, just another face in the blur of childhood, barely remembered, if at all. Such is the power of Maya, the illusion that paints the perception of emptiness as loss and projection as love. Liberation as Chidakasha. Let us end with this thunderous truth. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are not even the one who thinks you suffer. You are Chidakasha, the sky of consciousness itself. Does the sky fear storms? Does space beg for stars? No, the sky permits all things, yet remains untouched. Clouds drift, galaxies blaze, storms rage, but the sky never becomes them. It is their silent womb and their final dissolution. So too, your true nature, the Atman, is prior to every thought, every loss, every cry of the ego. The world appears in you, not you in the world. The Srimad Bhagavad Gita declares in Shloka 16 of the second chapter, Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. The unreal has no existence, the real never ceases to be. What is unreal? The mind's drama. What is real? You, the stainless perceiver, the infinite space or Chidakasha that holds all perception. This is not philosophy. This is not metaphor. This is the end of seeking. No wonder it is called Vedanta, the culmination of knowledge, literally the end of the Vedas. It does not dismiss seeking, but reveals that all seeking dissolves in the recognition of what is already known, the self. Stop identifying with the clouds. Stand instead as the sky, boundless, unshaken, free. Thank you. Stay blessed. Jai Shri Krishna.